Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Today's session is about oxidative stress and addiction that include smoking cigarettes. And today I'm very honored to invite this clinical social worker of 20 years. I'm going to mute all the people, okay? Sorry. Mute all. And I'm only open Barbara. We have some guests here. Okay, by the way, I'm Bai Ming Liu from Virginia. I'm very honored to be able to invite Barbara Dickey. Barbara is a licensed clinical social worker of 20 years and an educator of 50 years. And today's, I would like to interview her about some basic questions regarding the additions on include cigarettes. Okay, so let's start with Barbara. As a professional, I would like to ask you why people have the habit for addiction. So some people have, the habit to have smoke cigarettes, but some I hate, and then there's a lot of other format of addictions, but I'm just curious about why there's a difference among people in regarding to their reactions to various things. And just from a very layman people ask some very basic questions.
All right, we want to look at the cause, and I'm going to see if I can blow this picture up, and I can. Wow. Okay, as we look at our brain, you see this little red spot that's called, as Dr. McCord calls it, the nucleus accumbens. It's a pleasure center in the brain, and we all have them. And if you are, as a child, we're high on life. But I find that sometimes as we become teenagers, we get talked into cigarette smoking, cocaine, alcohol, any number of things. And so what happens to that pleasure center, and I'm going to shift with that, what happens to that pleasure center, as Dr. McCord explains, if you notice, we have a neurotransmitter called glutamate. And glutamate is so very, very important to us. And this little child that's high on life, he's got glutamate coming into the cell and making glutathione, and then glutathione goes out. And when it goes out, we've got a flow, ebb and flow of glutathione, glutamate, and since our gut makes 90%, up to 90% of the neurotransmitters, we see how important it is that our brain is working with the rest of our body. Unfortunately, once, and I find this with food, I'll share how that goes with food, but if you look, whether it's cocaine, cigarettes, if I eat bread or I eat anything that's a GMO, I do the same thing. And once we shift, and I'll take us back, once we shift from that pleasure center of being high on life, which is what this does, to then doing this, no longer do we operate high on life. What we operate under is high on whatever that is that we eat. If I eat bread, I want more bread. And I want more bread, and I want more bread. If you start with cocaine, then you want more cocaine, and you want more cigarettes. And what has happened is we have shifted the DNA in our brain to operate. And I see this with people who have Alzheimer's and dementia. If they have abused sugar, I know of someone who ate a 2-liter soda and a candy bar for lunch for 20 years. So then he was high on sugar. So whatever it is that messes up or hurts the glutamate going in and making the glutathione, and I will mention that May is Lyme Awareness Month in addition to other things. And one of the things that I'm noticing that glutathione is needed to fight off Lyme's. Glutathione is needed to fight off Parkinson's. So what we have is kind of a catch-22. As we are messing up our glutamate, making our glutathione, because we're supplying, instead of glutamate, we are supplying our brain with whatever that addiction is. And this is the same thing. Probably the biggest concern I see with married couples is pornography. Pornography seems to do about the same thing. That when you are looking at something that seems to shut this down, and then in the case of pornography, it begins to shrink this and begins to impact the locus of control. And if we're familiar with people that are with addictions, their locus of control has been so reduced that they're not able to stop what they're doing. And this, it impacts many areas of their life, their social, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual. So then it becomes a vicious cycle, a real vicious cycle. And so that's pretty much the thrust. And I'm going to take us back as we're looking at I'm going to go back up again. What I see, see if I can get back up to, yeah, I'm not, I want to go back, here we go. I want to go back to what I see LifeVantage, what I see LifeVantage doing is taking on what I call the watchword, which is nutrigenomics, how the body uses food and food substances to take care of itself. And I said God in his infinite wisdom knew exactly what he was doing. Unfortunately, many have to be really sick to get to the process and simple regain our health. Not a quick fix because we're dealing with the cellular level. But I've come to believe that if we turn on our survivor genes with our Nrf1 and Nrf2, as well as adding Omega Plus and the probio to clean up our gut, that by doing that, we actually can turn this situation back to this situation. And we know that with the use of Nrf2, that in 30 days, we can reduce to 40% of stress, the oxidative stress, and then we can actually, and I have found of the people that have had cocaine addictions, alcohol addictions, that if they are on an Nrf2 for at least 2 months, they turn this into this. Now, I realize we can't say that we can treat, mitigate, cure, or do any of that, but this is what I'm having people tell me, that they are turning this back into this when they get their cells, the revolving door cells, taking glutamate in and making glutathione. And I think that is huge. That is just amazing that something so simple can make such an impact. Because here's the problem I find in the addiction cycle. If it's an opioid, doctors are adding methadone or Suboxone or Subutex. And what I'm hearing clients say, that they can get all of these substances out on the street cheaper than they can get it from a doctor or a pharmacy. So then we've got that going. But yet in 2 to 3 to 4 months with a Nrf2 activator, we've got less expense. We've got a much simpler system, and I find it very workable. I will back up and mention that this blunts the ability of this region to release the glutamate by down-regulating the gene, encoding that, and changes its whole impact. All right. Any questions, or where would you like to go beyond that?
Oh, sure. So sounds like this is addictions has anything to do with oxidative stress.
I believe so. I believe so, that when we have these cells going from here to here, that we have allowed oxidative stress then to become a much bigger piece than it normally would. Because when our brain is not functioning as it should, it's going to erode, and as Dr. McCord said, it erodes this ability, or blunts this ability to be able to release the glutamate. This just stops that. And notice how glutamate's going this way, and it's not working as it should.
All right. So, but in terms of oxidative stress, I think that there's something, coming from outside, external things like pollutions, or bad quality of water, or medication, or something from outside. But for this addiction, do you think that's more like internal factors, like the way of your thinking, feeling, is that play more important than external factors regarding the addiction? For example, if somebody have a low self-esteem, and when other people will say something, they will be very sensitive and feel bad about themselves. And the more they think that way, the bad they feel about themselves, and then make them feel like, what would make me feel happy, feel comfortable, feel exciting, and they are just using some substance to do that. I don't know whether that makes sense.
Well, I think that we have layers, because we know, as we look back at this picture with the pleasure zone, back here is what I call the amygdala, and this is the frontal lobe. And of course, your frontal lobe is what's going to be, it's going to be thinking and being processing thing. But then this is our old brain, and I say that this part says fire, 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 and fight and flight mode. And we have what's called a hippocampus in the middle here. And I believe that with pollution, with medications, with any number of things that negatively, water, a poor diet, that we erode our ability to say to that part that says fire, 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 no, it's just a match. What I'm experiencing with many of my clients that are in AA, that many of them, when they were small children, were on stimulants to help with their attention deficit. And I've come to believe that oftentimes many of that is, like you say, self-esteem, inability to stay in the present moment. And oftentimes with the right coping mechanisms, students and children can be taught how to stay in the present moment. But you add a stimulant to that, and what you experience is sometimes a precursor for drug and alcohol use, because then it turns this. I see many things turning that into this, in terms of then now we have something else controlling what's going on in our brain rather than our glutamate making the glutathione. And the layers are, yes, self-esteem. Somebody talks us into smoking. Someone talks us into cocaine. Someone talks us into whatever. And if our frontal lobe is not operating at max, then to be able to discern and say, no, I'm not doing that. And unfortunately, peer pressure does not help.
Yeah. So some addiction people who have with that habit of addiction, actually, I think that they feel pretty bad about themselves, right? And
I believe so, yes. Their
but
self-esteem has taken a real beating.
So if they can understand the oxidative stress and self-esteem, and also develop the healthy way to think, to react, something happened to them, that probably would be very, very good to help them. So what is maybe I should ask you, what are the effects for the addiction can impact people's health?
Well, I find that if I have somebody that's an alcoholic, or somebody that's got an opioid addiction, or someone that's got a pornography or a gambling addiction, they can get on some type of medication. But I have found those that choose to be on a Nrf2 regulator have a better chance of raising their self-esteem. They have a better chance of fighting back, as opposed to those that are fighting back on their own. And I've oftentimes said I would rather see someone coming to me bleeding and being raw, and then we pick up the pieces, than to be medicated and numb. And of course, if they use drugs and alcohol, pornography, gambling, any of that is just a numbing out, so that they're not facing where they are rather than facing it. And I find that the Nrf2 activator, as it regulates gene expression and turns on our 5,000 genes, it kind of like it becomes a unique machine being able to deal with this. So I see the Nrf1 and 2 and the other two, as well as the Axio, being real good means by which an addict can take their life back.
Well, that's so important to differentiate between the normal or regular medicine and Nrf2. So the former is mainly make people feel numb, right? And that's why a lot of people just, sleeping all the time, right? That's how, as a result. But on the other hand, Nrf2 will help people to reduce the oxidative stress, which would be the main cause for become addiction.
Well, and we want to have our pleasure center and our enjoyment of life. As we look at depression and anxiety and look at any number of things, I believe that we can make an impact so that our pleasure comes from life rather than anything else, because anything else is not going to give us the life that we deserve. In actuality, I believe that it robs us of what we so deserve, and that abundant life, that ability to make such a difference in our society, because we feel good about ourselves, we're healthy. And I said when I first met you that I am 70 and a half going on 25, been doing this for 4.5 going on 5 years, and it's only getting better.
All right, great. So we are not saying that Nrf2 is a mitigate or treat for diseases include addiction, which is a kind of disease to some extent, right? So what can you tell us? We don't want to have known anybody in particular, but we want to have some feel for what kind of change you observed people by implement, using the Nrf2, as well as help them to increase their self-esteem. Can you give us some examples for a variety of things, like people smoking cigarettes, how long they,
Well, a hit of nicotine is very similar to a hit of cocaine, and I think we're finding more and more alcohol and the other addictions are doing it well, but it actually starves the cells. And as you starve the cells, blocking the level, what it happens, it starves the cells. If we go back here, we'll see that it starves these cells to do this. And what this does it starves the cells and it blocks at the basal level. And then what happens is it denies the glutamate, and then it shoves the glutamate, then denies it and shoves it, and later on in Dr. McCord's presentation, he shows an up and down, up and down, up and down, and you understand that addiction is, first it denies the glutamate, and then it shoves it real fast and denies it, shoves it, rather than the even, nice and easy flow of glutamate making glutathione, glutamate making glutathione. In actuality, it makes that process sped up to where the cells are no longer operating where they need to. And there's such a sense of longing. If you're around an alcoholic, you're around someone that smokes, there's a sense of longing. They don't seem to be happy. They can't wait for the next fix, rather than, I just can't wait to see what's going to happen in life, which is a robbing of all that there is. It's so very, very important.
Wow. Okay. So those are the people under help. Switch from smoking cigarettes several times a day and to not smoke at all. Is that possible?
Well, since we're not claiming what we can do here, I just know that if someone, according to what we're seeing here, if someone adds an Nrf2 activator, interrupts this process, and we know that 30 days eliminates 40% of the oxidated stress in everybody's body, and that it does it 1 million per second every single second, and that in 120 days we get rid of 70% of the stress. It only makes sense that if we're able to eliminate that, we ought to impact whatever it is you have going on, as we're turning on our survivor genes and they express themselves. It only makes sense.
Yeah, it's such a powerful, helping tool to help those with addiction. I don't know how many people know about, maybe 1%, maybe even less.
Yeah, I'm sure that we have a very small population that does do that. I want to take us to somewhere else. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to go back to my site, see if it lets me. That took me out of the site. Let's go back. Sorry about that. The mouse seems to be very, 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 very well. And let's look at this. This might be very interesting, which is very similar to addictions. Here's a person who got badly sunburned. When one gets a sunburn, it ages the skin, but applying an anti-aging cream like True Science stops that process. And we're going to stay tuned with that process as well. But just like addiction deals with the cells, our skin also has cells. And so as we look at every situation, no matter what it is, if we're turning on survivor genes and they're expressing themselves, it only impacts what works. And if you look at a picture of myself, and I will go, let's keep going here. All right, got some things in between here. Not going to find it, but in 1999, I weighed well over 200 and something, and because I've turned on my survivor genes, and this is where the foot is, and I said, woohoo, I just broke 140 pounds, and I'm at 139, and what I have done is I have the same thing going on. If I go into a restaurant and I start eating bread, I start eating gravies, I start eating GMO products, the same thing seems to happen, that I'm doing the same thing. I'm shutting off my glutamate that makes the glutathione. But there's something else that I want to take us to and see if I can find it. That mouse is so quick and it doesn't do what oftentimes we want it to. Okay. As we look at the causes of oxidative stress, I love this poster because it shows stress, medication, drugs, alcohol, smoking, diet, pollution, aging, and excessive exercise, all of those. And you see the results of oxidative stress, all of the things that can be tied to it. And some of the studies on PubMed are showing that many of these things can be tied. If you get on PubMed.gov, you'll find that many of the dis-ease processes are associated with oxidative stress. And then we see what the causes of oxidative stress are and where that goes. Okay, where else do we want to go today?
Right. So for those who are having addiction, and also is there any way to prevent going to the addiction?
Well, what we have found, the Nrf2, preventing it, well, my premise is I wish that I would have had an Nrf2 activator to have gotten on years ago, because I'm noticing as my body is reversing the aging process, I wish I'd have been on it much sooner, because it would have made the health issues that I have dealt with be a whole lot better. And I think as we're encouraging people in their 20s and their 30s to take a look at Nrf2s and 1s, because it interrupts, because it seems like more and more we've got addictions that are earlier. I'm having clients tell me that they're starting cigarette smoking at 11, 12, 10, 9. So that means that they are doing this at a much earlier age. And by doing this at a much earlier age, that just means that they're more prone to disease. And I don't know that we were ever meant to have disease, but if we do things that creates acidicness in our body, then it makes sense that we're going to have disease. And this can be the culprit. But I believe we assume that because we're a certain age that we're going to get sick and we're going to do this, and we want to challenge that, because I believe that we do not have to experience disease.
Okay. So as a final advice, that as a and also a person with a big heart, what advice you would like to tell those people with addictions?
Run, don't walk. Find somebody who can share with you about the Nrf2, nutrigenomics, the activation, and see what happens. See what happens, because what they're doing, they're saying they don't like, and this has got to be a better way.
Okay, all right, that's great. And also, you think that we need to let them know you're not alone, and this is not the end of the world. There's so many help that you can ask for.
Right, very definitely. You're not alone, and there's help out there, and we can certainly find ways to help you do that.
Yeah.
Addiction isn't alone. It's being alone. Even though you may use with somebody else, you may smoke with somebody else, you may use with somebody else, it's still being alone. Very much a feeling of alone, particularly when you're getting that craving to do it again. And as we said, after one hit, it's just a roller coaster ride that's not fun.
Sure. And also, that don't let it stay, right? So once you have the thing, addiction, you realize that you get into the habit and you need to ask for professional help. Otherwise, this, like Barbara said, it would be roller coasting to the life that you don't want to have. correct?
Well, and I think the average person who's addicted to something thinks that this is their lot in life and that they're stuck with it and they can't get out of it, which is a misconception. Part of our self-talk is a misconception that I deserve to be sick or I deserve to have an addiction. And part of the process is to turn that around to a 180-degree turn. No one deserves any of this. We deserve good health.
Exactly. And guys, people on this webinar or interview, you can tell Barbara over 7 days, she is so passionate about to help a lot of people because she saw and she found that there's something in here we can help rather than regular doctors and regular professionals, because this is something at the forefront of nutrigenomics. Nobody knows about it.
Well, and we're an interrupter. We're an interrupter, business as usual. We're an interrupter because what's happening now isn't working, and we need something new. And yes, we are first to market. We are innovators. And oftentimes it's lonely being innovators, but this is something that I've come to really believe in. And more people are joining us in this quest. I told you that I want to help 1 million people.
Yeah, 1 million people. Did you hear, guys? So 1 million people, some people are part of like your situation, right? So just, lift your spirit, and here we are to be able to help you. And also, I wouldn't want to say it that because our LifeVantage, there's so many things that actually beyond what you can dream of. Okay, some people with addictions because they cannot find the friends, right? And in LifeVantage, you can find a lot of friends, especially like-minded friends. Okay, so I met Barbara 2 weeks ago, Barbara, and we just feel like a friend, a long-time friend, So many people, and also we believe it or not, and there's a lot of people find their soulmate, and they become a great couple, got married. Can you believe that? Because we are all like-minded people. So I encourage people who are single or who can find the other party. But if you are some people just like us, then you will find a lot of people, coming like what we do. All right. And also, some people may have because the financial situation. All right, so they feel like, wow, no, I'm poor. There's no way for me to get rich. That's not true, right, Barbara? And we can in this platform. There's so many unlimited things. So many impossible things that we can accomplish. So, Barbara, do you want to say something about in that regard? Because people just looking for something, they couldn't find it, and they got into the addiction. But we just want to tell you that you don't need to go to that direction. We have something that you're looking for. So, Barbara, can you also mention
there is a business opportunity. LifeVantage is traded on the NASDAQ. It's a publicly traded company, which means that everything is wide open, and it's about residual income, doing something once and getting paid over and over again. And when I think of Jacqueline Rawlings with the books that she wrote that are now being made into a movie, she wrote the books once. They've made the movie, and she gets paid for it over and over and over again, much like getting involved with people in LifeVantage. You're able to do something once, and then you get paid for it over and over again. So the business opportunity is very, very important in addition. And as we talk to people, it's about time freedom, good health, and monetary freedom, and whatever it is that people are looking for that makes a difference. So there is a better way. There is a better way than addictions. There is a better way than illness. There is a better way. And I think that the two of you and I have found that, and we're encouraging other people to find it as well.
Well, we just want to tell you guys there is a hope. There's a better way. All right. So if you want to have more information about addictions and how we can help, and Barbara, you want to have some information to tell other people how to reach you?
Yes, I can be reached at, as you can see, my Facebook page, Barbara Alice Rassler Dickey.
Okay, can you go back? Can you go back to see?
That's my site, and then of course this LifeVantage 2020 is my site that I add people. So if you join me on my other site and are interested in more information and friend me, we can do that. My office is 717-660-2114. My cell phone is 717-339-8019.
Great. Can you go back to your Facebook page so people can know where?
Okay.
All right. So you
Okay,
look
not
at that.
this one, but my regular Facebook page, Barbara Alice Rassler Dickey. I can be found there, and you can see my picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Great. Thank you so much, Barbara.
All righty. Thank you.
And I think that everyone who are listening, hopefully you can reach to other people, tell them their good news, wonderful news, which they cannot imagine. Okay. So I will also save this as a link, and I will publish in whatever the YouTube or what, so that more people can access to it. All right. Thank you so much, Barbara, and thank you
you.
for all people participating in. Okay. Have a great day. Bye-bye.